Dice, yeah, ay, ay.
Good day and welcome. I am William, narrator for the FYI I Am Damaged podcast. What if the words you never heard growing up, "Are you okay? I'm here if you need me," end up becoming the conversations you create for everyone else? Today Oscar talks with 24-year-old Alabama podcaster Noah May, host of Lethal Venom podcast, a variety show built on unfiltered truth, mental health honesty, and the belief that sometimes real talk stings like venom but heals like medicine. This is the FYI I Am Damaged podcast. Now a word from our sponsor. Oscar wrote a wonderful children's book called Logan, the strong-minded little elephant. Oscar also created a wonderful children's song added to the end of this podcast, inspired by his children's book. Check it out.
Meet Logan, the strong-minded little elephant who learns that bravery isn't about being fearless. It's about believing in yourself even when you're scared. In this beautifully illustrated story, friends follow Logan through a colorful jungle as he learns to calm his worries, take deep breaths, and remind himself, I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. It's a story that helps kids, and maybe a few grown-ups too, find courage, mindfulness, and strengthen their hearts. Logan, the strong-minded little elephant by me, Oscar Luna. Available now at all major retailers and my publisher's bookstore, Milton and Hugo. Because it's up to every parent to show that their child deserves to know that strength starts from within.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of FYI I Am Damaged. I'm joined by Noah May, a fellow podcaster. Noah, how are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Now, briefly introduce yourself to someone who's never seen your shows or social media.
So my name's Noah May. I'm from the great state of Alabama, as you could probably tell from the accent. I'm 24. I graduated from Auburn University with my bachelor's in journalism, have my BA in journalism. And outside of that, I do podcasting full time. I have the host of 3 podcasts, but the main one I focus on for the most part has been Lethal Venom. And it's a kind of a variety show where I talk about whatever I want with honest to God truth. I don't really I don't tell any lies on there. And it's a mixture of conversations with guests as well, solo, but it's kind of turned more into guests where we just have honest conversations. And that's a little bit about me in a nutshell.
And interesting, how did you come about with the name for your main podcast, Lethal Venom?
So the name for Lethal Venom kind of came from, I wanted it to be kind of unique. So I wanted it to be a variety type show. So I thought, okay, what would be a good name? And I played around with some names on Apple Podcasts and try to put some in and see if it was already taken, because I didn't want my podcast to be kind of have the same name. I wanted it to be kind of unique. And so I looked, and Venom was already taken, and as well as like Poison, as well as all that. I wanted it to be kind of like a badass name a little bit. And the title kind of stems from the truth, how the truth hurts. And when people hear about the truth and that they hear about the honesty about it, it can be hurtful and can be harmful, just like how Venom is to us. And so that's kind of how the name came to be. And I put lethal in front of it because I thought, well, we'll save that. And it wasn't taken yet. So I actually trademarked the name and had to keep it a secret for the longest time because I thought I don't want anyone stealing the name from me before an episode comes out. So I kept it kind of quiet until I was able to have it posted. And starting actually today is actually my 1-year anniversary for it. I actually have been doing Lethal Venom exactly for a year today. I didn't just looked at it today and saw that it was 1 year. So yeah, that's kind of how the name came to be, and how I came up with the name. It was the longest process in the whole podcast thing.
No, I gotcha. That I understand. When you said you don't want to tell the name to anyone, I was the same way. When I got my little download from what I was going through, and the name came to me, everything, how I would go about it, and XYZ, and I'm like, I looked it up, no one had it. So I'm like, perfect. I made sure that it was just, tight lipped, did my intro, and then I'm like, boom, I'm going at it. And so yeah, trust me, I that when you said that rang my bell. I'm like, yeah, no, I get it. I get it. And it's funny you should say that too. I started mines in 2022, so in March, so I'm coming up to 4 years as well, like right next month. So congratulations on the 1 year. And it's a nice, do you reflect a lot on all the stuff that you do, or you just not plow through, but you just looking ahead? And also, do you ever have a chance to reflect back on the people you spoke to and the episodes you've released and all of that?
I occasionally do. There have been times where I've done kind of other podcast episodes, whether I'm the host or guest on whatever platform it is on. And sometimes I'll kind of relate back to maybe I had an interview with someone that kind of struck a chord with me, and I kind of share that experience on there. I do a lot of I keep tabs on of a lot of them. I follow them on social media, so being able to see them on LinkedIn or Instagram too kind of brings back like, oh yeah, I had them on my show. And if I follow other podcasts that have the same guests on as I have, it kind of makes me think back of like, oh yeah, I remember that name. I remember who that was and their story. And even now with me editing and posting, going back to hear all the episodes I've recorded, it kind of brings back like I try to pinpoint like where I was at the time and just see how much it's grown ever since then. Like I'm recording one that was I think back in September. I had or it might have been September or October. I recorded, and I'm just thinking my show was not really as big as it is now, and it's just kind of crazy how everything has just blown up in such a short amount of time. And yeah, there's a lot of self reflection that I do. I look and see what kind of episodes have taken off through my analytics, and even that kind of surprises me of how what episodes kind of resonate with the listeners and what doesn't. It's just always a guessing game of like what episode will do well, what episode won't. And I've been surprised at some of the results on that. But yeah, I do some reflecting here and there.
How do you take the, well, not the as much as demographics, but at least, well, the demographics of the location? And has that ever, like, it surprised me to see, different countries who are listening to my shows, and I'm like, wait, I'm like, I thought it was just the bulk. Okay, the bulk is like the United States, but then I see
Mhm.
Philippines, I see Russia, what else? A bunch. There's a bunch. And it's just, how does that come off to you when you see that, and it's how it goes around the world?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question to ponder on because my main thing is how did you find me? Like, I don't know how you found me and like how my name popped up on your either For You feed. I don't know how my name kind of came up in there, but you're right. It's interesting to see like predominantly my audience is from the United States, is from our native country, but then I've had people from like China, Japan, Australia, the UK, Switzerland. I'm just trying to Philippines. It's just crazy how a lot of in Africa too. It's just been crazy to think. My main thing is like I don't know how they're fully understanding what I'm saying, which there might be transcripts and kind of like translations outside of the states on these platforms that I'm just not aware of, and so they can actually hear my whole episode in their native language, which I think would be honestly cool. But I've had some people say, a lot of people that live in these countries learn a lot of English from English speaking podcasts, and I was like, I'm the last person to be learning English from. Don't have like a Southern illiterate person, even though I do have a college education degree. I still speak, and sometimes I say words that are not grammatically grammatically correct, and I'm just like I'm the last person to learn English from. Don't learn it from a Southern pig, like no.
Or it's like, yeah, the slang or something like that. It doesn't really translate well, especially if they're using AI, or if like Spotify or Apple does the automatic translate. Like,
Yeah.
definitely, I get it.
So I'm always like, just don't listen to Mountain Me. I'm the least person, but it's interesting, and I'm honored that I'm heard in a lot of countries. I think I did my calculations correct, and I think I'm heard on every continent except Antarctica, I think. So my show has been heard at least in 6 continents so far. So that's been crazy to think of, but it's just really interesting to see where my show is, who's really listening to it. But yeah, it's interesting to say the
Hey,
least.
who knows? Get a couple of military personnel, and you might have somebody from McMurdo listen to it, and then there you go. You conquered, Antarctica.
What? I don't. We'll see. We might try to get a polar bear down there to listen to a phone.
Now, you've been open about feeling like an outcast and even considered, with your past story and in your life in your teens. When you look back, what do you wish that the younger version of yourself had heard to make a difference in your life?
That's a good question. I think personally it would be the right people will come along and your life is going to change drastically. That you're going to go through a lot of negative things. There's going to be a lot of struggles and hardships to come your way, but it actually all works out in the very end. That you come out on top, you'll be successful in a way that you never thought that you would be successful before, and it'll get better. But just hearing like the thing that I wish someone younger would tell me was, "Are you okay? Do you need to talk about something?" That would probably be the biggest thing I wish I would have heard. Looking back, is I'm here if you need me.
I feel that because a lot of people don't get approached to say, hey, like you said, like, are you okay? Like, do you want to talk about it? 5 minutes can make a difference in someone's life, especially when they're not in a good headspace. And with men and the mental health struggles that they go through, it's a lot. Now, how did the COVID pandemic period specifically affect you mentally, and what changed in your routines or relationships because of it?
Before COVID kind of happened, I had been diagnosed with anxiety. I had recently had a diagnosis of strong, severe anxiety during that time. And before the pandemic really started, I was kind of in and out of school with dealing with the mental health with that diagnosis. And it took about a month or two before I figured out what it was. So when COVID started happening, the very beginning of lockdown, I did a lot of trying to heal myself and try to get my physical self back up to where I originally was. Later in the year, about I want to say October or going into November, I got sick with a cold, and we thought it was just kind of a normal cold allergy sickness that I usually got every year around that time. Went to the doctor to kind of tell the symptoms. A lot of the symptoms, at the time, anything was considered COVID. Like if you had like chicken pox, you had COVID. If you had like a stomach bug, that was COVID. So I had a lot of symptoms that were similar to, oh, you have COVID. We went, did like a swab in the nose, but it wasn't like back here in the brain that people say. It was kind of like the outer part of the nose here. That test came back negative, so we thought that I had not contacted COVID. A month later goes by. We got back to the doctor because I had not been better. Could not smell or taste anything. That was kind of the main symptom I had from COVID. And they did a blood test. We waited for about an hour for the blood work to come back, and they detected that I had COVID in my bloodstream. Well, we didn't know, like, at that point what to do, because for this whole month period, I have been going to class. Granted, I was wearing a mask, so I wasn't one of those that did not take it seriously. I did. So I would be going to my college class with a mask on, COVID free, because I didn't have any other symptoms. I would be going to the store. So we we're kind of in that mindset of like, do we tell people that that I have it? Do we say anything? Do we just kind of keep it under the rug? So for the longest time, I actually never told anyone that I had it. It wasn't until about a year after my diagnosis that I said, "Oh yeah, I had COVID during that time," but I just didn't want to say anything, cause alarm. But mentally, it triggered my depression and my anxiety really ticked up again, and a lot of the things that I had overcome earlier in 2020 had just kind of relapsed. I lost a lot of the weight that I had lost previously. I just fell into a really bad depressive state, wanted to commit suicide at some points in time. I ended up having COVID for 6 months. So I had from about October to about March or April, I would say, was kind of the time frame from how long my COVID diagnosis lasts. And this was before the vaccine. So this was even way before the vaccine became publicly available to the country to where people could start taking it. So I was kind of at a lost cause. But then when I got it, I was afraid of like, oh my God, am I going to die? Because that was literally like what everything is like. Everyone who contacted it died from it. And I thought, so thought this is it. I thought this was a nice life at 18. I thought I struggled so much. And, it was just kind of like a way of like, really, am I going to go out like this? I was so like, okay. I was like, do I need to start dropping out of class? Do I need to start dropping my class to start preparing for my grave? Well, yeah, it was scary.
It was a weird time because and then everybody was believing everything that was out there. Like I had a coworker, he's like, "Oh yeah, I heard online if you can't hold your breath for 30 seconds, you have it." So he was telling that to everybody and so you see a whole bunch of guys just in the office as working IT holding their breath. Like are you serious? And I can't front. I did it myself. I was like, okay, good, 30 seconds. But it was like then I started informing myself and I'm like, this is idiocy. And luckily that's when I was working for the fire department in New York and we were fast tracked to get the Moderna shot and people were hustling to try and get on that line when EMS
Yeah.
was fire and EMS was first, and then they started rolling it out to the civilian personnel, and it was a trying time. And I
Yeah.
remember the first time when I got it. Mind you, I'm going back and forth in the morning, coming home. My wife's working from home. I have three boys and never once got it. Once they lifted everything, and I never worked remotely. I had to, go into work, which was in the headquarters in Brooklyn. The first time I got it was months later. I remember I'm drinking a iced coffee, Dunkin' Donuts. It just felt like I was drinking water. And my wife was like, "Ooh," I was like, "I cannot taste it." And you know how Dunkin' Donuts is, a little sugary and everything, depending on the flavor you get. And she's like, "We got to go get checked." We went, and only like, I think out of five of, no, yeah, but we had the baby. So out of the four of us getting checked, I think only two of us got it, myself included. And then the same thing. I said, and then even though I got the vaccine, I was like, how the hell did I get it if I got the vaccine? So that's when all that stuff happens. And then then they're trying to unravel everything. You're not being told every single thing. So, I mean, that's another rabbit hole within itself, with
Mm.
COVID. So, but yeah, I mean, look, moving on with how, as you said, you're an open book, don't lie, especially on your podcast. How do you start to untangle what you were taught about masculinity from what you actually needed to heal with all the things that you've gone through prior?
That's a really good question. I've never been asked that.
Thank you.
The, um, I had kind of the different upbringing than what most kids would. I did not necessarily have the true father figure in my household. My biological father was actually a rapist and actually raped my mom. and that's kind of how I was conceived, was from that. So I never met him, never knew his name or anything. So I had to ask a lot of my male friends a lot about masculine questions because it just was weird. The only father figure I had that was masculine in my life was my grandfather. When your grandfather is in their 50s, 60s, and then here you are 13, it's just a weird scenario of trying to ask very personal questions to someone that's not technically your father, but it's only thing. So I asked a lot of my guy friends that I had at the time these questions, and I even asked a lot of my girlfriends too, of like these questions because I know that they kind of had brothers, or I just at this point ask anyone that was my age. They of course they kind of gave me some good advice. They kind of gave me some bullshit advice, but then that's kind of how a lot of the questions that, most fathers teach their sons had learned was from strangers. I had to ask a lot of strangers online about it. I did a lot of just trying to find it myself through pornography as well. I mean, there was just a lot of resources that I was using to learn, kind of to learn more about the truth about masculinity and what you're supposed to do and not do. And it was just, I had a lot of hard time trying to find that information without trying to be like creepy about it as well. As like, because it was real personal questions and I didn't want to get too personal with someone that I didn't personally know too well. So it was just really troublesome for me.
No, I get you. I'm the same. So I can relate because growing up, I grew up in a single family household with my mom, and my dad was in and out. So I'm lucky I leaned on at the time because I'm 47. So the cartoons were a little more wholesome. They're a little more morally sound than what they are now, whether either, not to say they're not moral now, but they're just missing that sort of, I mean, grew up with that NBC, the more you know, the little star shooting, reading Rainbow, all that type of stuff growing up, even G.I. Joe, Thundercats, and comics as well. And I've been lucky enough to tap in when a lot of the stuff was, instead of more flashy, it was more ingrained in the morals and the story. And I took to that. And it helped me kind of understand and grow. But the same thing, pornography and everything else. I had a lot of friends. Once we got to a certain age, just running around and just learning from each other. And, but I'm glad that even though it was through the media at that time, it was a better base that they can offer to be like, people go through stuff, and a lot of other things, and the storyline goes to being, make yourself a better person, be morally sound, and XYZ. And learning how, that's one of the things that bothered me like a couple of years ago, was like, okay, if I didn't have a father figure, a father to be there 100%, not even 30% of the time, less than that, how am I going to be a father to my three boys? So that was something like I can definitely relate to that. And I want to say thank you for your honesty, your vulnerability. And I always say, you find your strength through vulnerability. So thank you for showing up in your vulnerability. And I see nothing but strength in that.
Yeah, and people are probably question why I'm so open and honest about everything, and it's been every time I tried to be open and honest about something, no one ever heard what I had to say. It was just kind of like someone talking. That's literally how my friends and my classmates probably had basically treated me. It was simply a basic of like, is someone talking? I hear something. Like, and then so I never really fully got it. So I wanted to be that voice for people that, maybe they have are in the same situation as me and be able to hear it. Now, granted, my show's not really for people 18 and under, but it just depends on the subject, which, you can't really control age limit on that. But um, I know later in life when people are still like, I don't know anything about this, I kind of they can listen to my podcast and hear a guest talk about it or hear myself talk about it as well. And so it's I've had so many people that have applauded that too, especially with my mental health. They've really applauded me opening up about it, and it's something I will forever talk about it till I'm blue in the face.
Now, what made podcasting the right outlet for you instead of, say, journaling, substacking, or posting on social media?
This is a question I ask myself every day because this was not meant to be a full time job. I'll be completely honest, this was not my plan. After I had graduated from Auburn, I had a really difficult time trying to find a job in the field that I really wanted to go in. And I didn't want to be the more news broadcaster, what you would see of like local news, world news, and all this stuff. I wanted to be kind of more of like radio, kind of that journalism where you had casual just interviews. You didn't have to worry about wearing a suit and tie. You didn't have to worry about having to wear a certain dress code. Have to worry about bringing cameras and microphones. I didn't want any of that. So I thought radio would be the best starter for me. And then after that, I wanted to be more kind of in the entertainment business of like pop culture, what you would see like Entertainment Tonight, talk shows. That's my realm of where I was wanting to go with my journalism degree. Well, trying to get that experience and practice was hard to find because they wanted years and years of experience, which I did not have, being a recent college graduate. So I looked into podcasting as like, well, does podcasting have journalism? Like, can you make a career of podcasting? And you know, some people obviously do. I mean, you see a lot of like Joe Rogan, a lot of the big podcasts like Call Me Daddy and all this stuff is, you know, these high level podcast platforms that do make a good living off of that. So I thought, well, I guess I could start doing it that way. So I did podcasting as a hobby. And then I think if you kind of got through Podmatch as well, I had this guy reach out to me in April named Alex Sanfilippo. He was the greatest guy that has ever probably graced podcasting, and this is the best podcasting guru that I know. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I am part of this network called Podmatch. We're kind of a new podcasting network that's really starting to blow up." If that he had heard my show, he actually left me like a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, which I thought was still thinking like, okay, that could be a bot, but you know, I was lenient because I had been getting a lot of scams. He told me that he thought that my show would be a good benefit for their platform if I was interested in signing up. Well, I had to do a lot of research and I saw no negative signs from the internet about Podmatch, no negative reviews. I didn't even see like a 4-star review. That's how like I was like, so this is like legitimately like a good business. I signed up with them and it just took off from there. And they've really been a really good platform for me to really boost my audience out there. I've met some of the most amazing people. That's how I think you and I got connected on there. I mean, it's just like it's such a great podcasting network that I think is so underappreciative. It's so overlooked as well. It's just a really good thing for if you're like a beginner podcaster and you're wanting to do more dabble into the interview style of podcasts. That's a really good platform. There's tens of thousands of guests on there that will fit, at least one of the guests on there will fit your niche for the show. And it just really has blossomed from there. So long story, kind of wrap things up in kind of one sentence. Wasn't the plan, but after learning kind of like how the podcasting goes, I was like, you know, I'm just going to start doing podcasting as my career. So do it full time. And I really, really enjoyed it.
No, that's awesome. I've met a lot of eclectic people, and on top of that, I've met people who have listened to my episodes and they're like, you get the PR people, oh, we have a great guest for you. We heard this episode. And even then, one of my best episodes was Bill Eschenbaum about how his family was in the Civil War. It's like and other people from other countries, and it's been like it's been an awesome ride. And I love it meeting all the different people with the scheduling, because if you're meeting somebody in another country, like I've had about three people already from Australia. So, you know, I said, wait, I'm like, they want to interview me tomorrow, but then I'm like, genius, they're a day ahead and all this stuff. So getting used to that. And then all the eclectic people and their views and viewpoints and what they're going through. I just interviewed someone who is going through cancer for the second time, and her second cancer diagnosis is a blood cancer that's uncurable. And she wants to put the word out there to make people stronger and everything. And, from my platform, everybody hears the name, they might think of it a little bit negative, or it may cause them a little more introspection than normal. And I love that because I want to this everybody. It's rare to meet the person that is basically walking on water. And it's like you've been through something and you can benefit somebody who is tight-lipped. They keep it, close to the vest, and they never get curious about their journey with healing. But with something like how what you do, what I do, and all the people that we interview, it's like you got to start getting curious about something.
Mm.
And yeah, and I've grown leaps and bounds with the people I've met on Podmatch, and I'm thinking about doing the dual sign up, as maybe start giving interviews rather than taking them, you know. Well, yeah, the opposite way. Taking interviews instead of giving them. No. Anyway, everybody, yeah, you know what I mean. But yeah,
Telling your story and they
exactly.
listen. There you go.
Yeah, but I rarely try to put myself in the forefront. But I mean, look, stories need to be told, and I don't mind. Now, you've interviewed guests about everything from anxiety, music, to their life stories. What have you learned from being on the other side of the mic that has changed how you tell your own story?
Ooh. Some people that I have interviewed are really bluntly honest. It's so hard when I don't have like a lie detector test on deck that's telling me that they're saying the truth, but just from how openly honest and like how they're saying it makes me think that, well, people are actually open to honesty. And so it's made me continuously just continue telling my truth, because I thought, do I twist anything in my story to where it makes it sound less gruesome? Or it's like, does it sound less explicit? And I've had some people that, here's like a good example. I had a guest very, very early on. She went by the swearing therapist, was her name. And that episode was actually one of my favorites that I've done because it was just so openly explicit. I mean, I counted the F words. I think we cursed about 50 times during that whole episode. I think there's about 50 F bombs in there. But I thought that's the rawness of the show. And those are the types of shows that I really, really enjoy. I don't really, I, of course, don't influence or encourage cursing, but I think for my podcast, I think the more people curse, the more raw and personal it gets. They really mean it, and it just adds character to the story. It adds more of like old grit and like kind of like crime in there too. And don't get me wrong, I like the more PG shows that I do that are tailored to family, to where family like can have kids listen to it as well. But the PG-13 R-rated ones that get the explicit tag are just some more of my personal favorites because of just how honestly and how open the conversation gets. Now, granted, most cursing might come from me, but it's like there have been cases where they overpower me sometimes. I'm like, oh, but I have really much enjoyed just having those, and it's made me not be afraid to just say like it is. I do have to check with guests, of course, of like, is there anything that I can't say, and like censor myself a little bit. But it's made me just be like, tell the truth, tell what it is, and just lay it all out.
Mm, yeah, I get that. That's why I have to do that kind of little disclaimer at the beginning, just to kind of get the temperature of the water real quick. And with the guests that I'm talking to, whatever discipline that they're coming to me with, or, they want and to interview about their book and all that, and then some. Now, I would recommend somebody who I've had a very raw interview with and was amazing, but you may have probably interviewed her anyway. You ever come across Mandy Hart?
Mandy Hart.
I think it's Heart's Desire, which is her coaching or her business, but she's an awesome individual. I've connected with her and we're actually doing a follow-up episode, but she's one person that I would recommend you reach out to speak with. She's in the same vein of being open, honest, raw, and highly intelligent and just a good vibe, So she's a good person I would say to reach out to if you're continuing your journey and looking for eclectic people.
I'm looking. Looks like I have interviewed her before.
Good.
So I don't think our episode has come out yet, but it'll probably be one of the ones coming up. So I'll hear it here soon. But yeah, and that's kind of the thing too, is like you interview so many people, you forget like names. You're just like,
Yeah, I went through that so many times, and you're trying to get the gems and what they're trying to get across. Like it took, or even just trying to get everything set properly. I had one with Matt Johnson. That was the first guy from Podmatch that I interviewed. He does NLP, hypnosis work, and the audio was screwed up. And it took me about 2 to 3 weeks, and I'm like, damn, I want to put them out in succession. It's just me. It's just something that I have. If I interviewed you at a certain day, like you're next. Okay, interview you, you're next. That's how I do it. And so everybody you see from Matt and on, I've interviewed them one after the other. I never kind of shuffled them around because that's just what I like to do, a
right,
personal preference. Now, I had an audio issue. And luckily, since I use Riverside for now, they had an option where kind of fixed that. So it was basically like, okay, we stopped the dam from leaking, and after that, it was just one episode after the other. Because like how like I'm OCD ish. And I have a certain way about me to go about things that I'm doing. So when that one got me stuck, I was like, damn. Oh, I got another. I hope that's not annoying. I got another recommendation. And she got onto Podmatch after I interviewed her, Adrienne Caldwell. Have you interviewed her or you're about to?
she was probably one of the most captivating interviews I've ever done.
Mm,
That interview altogether is top podcast episodes I've ever done. It was so wrong. She, I think, to me, for me personally, for my show, I think it's been the most personal one and been eye opening. I loved her story and, loved how she told it. She was such a nice person. I loved interviewing her. She was absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I interviewed her. I think she had just gotten on the platform, maybe was recently on there. I think one of the first few podcasters off Podmatch to reach out to her. Wonderful, wonderful lady. Loved her.
yeah, that interview was amazing because I was going through some personal issues with work and with family, and then she hit me out of the blue. She was doing a marathon of podcast interviews because of her book, which I'm waiting to still come out because she keeps pushing it back, and hopefully it comes out soon. I pre-ordered mine, and that was another sort of like, hey, get off your ass and let's go. You got something here, and interviewing her sparked the match, meeting all the people, because that's how, like, I guess I got like a cold, kind of call it like an online cold call, like through LinkedIn, where the guy who runs Podmatch, I guess he's searching for anybody who does podcasting on LinkedIn. So because you see that, I know you get all the PR things and everything in your email, or people saying, "Oh, I could do this for social media, XYZ for your show." So I get that a
Yeah.
lot. And so he hit me up straight on LinkedIn, and I said, "All right, let me see what's up." Nice thing. You could get paid for interviewing people, XYZ. And when I did my interview with her, it led me to that, and then it was just off to the races. And she's one of my, like, one of the jewels in the crown of like one of my best episodes, because yeah, it's so raw what she's been through. And even giving her like some insight. And if you're able to ever catch the episode, because I asked her, I said, she likes to say, oh, I show receipts with my story. I said, that's beautiful. I said, have you talked to any of the doctors that has interviewed you when you were a child? And she's like, no. She's like, I'm gonna reach out if they're still alive. I'm gonna reach out and talk to them. So it was good to give her some insight, and then you know how that kind of gets the juices going and puts the battery in your back. And I'm sure you've probably had moments like that.
My favorite thing to do during podcasting is like when when you ask a question and they get stumped on it. I'm like, I've had moments of like, damn, that was a good question. I have to be proud of myself on that. I've had moments where I'm just like, I did great today.
But
And
yeah, I
then
love that.
I tend to nail a lot of the podcasts too. Here's like a secret that, and I feel so like honored, but it's something I totally do not do. Every guest that I've had come on my show says he does his research, he does his work, he does a lot of like preparedness for it. I'm like, about 5 minutes before the interview, I do. I get about like not even 5 minutes. I just hop on, and I don't know if that's just because of how professional I can be at doing this. I don't know, but I hate having that compliment given to me of like, oh, he does the research. I'll be honest, I don't. I just kind of hop in, and mainly when they're doing the interviews, when I'm doing a lot of like reading and looking up on them. And that's just kind of how I've always been. I've always been able to just nail stuff at like off guard. And I just really have really enjoyed it. But I didn't really start getting the PR stuff until recently. I actually had this might be a little controversial, but this is a hot take on me. I hate talking to assistants. I don't know what your relationship is with them, but I personally do not like them. I have had multiple run-ins with multiple assistants because they are awful at communicating and they all are not good at their job. But I had one that was really good, reached out to me and told me that he was a film producer, writer. He was a real horror movie writer, and gave me a website and everything. Was just like very like, oh, okay. That was kind of like the first email I received, and that was about a month ago. And I had just recorded an episode with him recently, like I think last week. So it'll probably be a while till it comes out. But yeah, I recorded it. It was one of my favorite ones, I thought. And I even said on the episode, I was like, this is my first non-pod match interview. So I was like, we expanding, we going out of our comfort zone today. But yeah, I tend to not like assistants as much. That might be a little controversial. I know they're so beneficial, but mm-mm.
I like to, it's like, there's a lot of people that I did interview, and I can make recommendations from like here to wherever, but a lot of people that I've interviewed from outside of Podmatch, because they seen the episodes that I've already done. And it's, I've come in contact with a lot of great people. Jenny Chan, she runs the Pacific Atrocities nonprofit about Asians who went through their own atrocities during the war, and a lot of other people. So whoever's listening to this, just check out my list. And it's same thing, like you, raw, honest. And to hear these stories, and I'm like, how am I this old and I didn't know about this. I didn't know about this. And or it is such an addition to my healing journey, because I tell them, I said, honestly, I do this for me. I don't worry about what income this is bringing in, if at all. I said, I'm putting stuff out there that is connecting with a lot of people, and most more myself than anybody else. And do you feel that? How much do you get from it, as opposed to doing it for people to absorb and maybe, pull on their, heartstrings a bit?
I my show is so diverse that I'm kind of one of the only two podcasts probably on the Well, I would say probably one of the few podcasts where, you can have like anyone could come on. You do have the podcasts that are like more tailored to movies, music, kind of the more personal diary stories, more about mental health and fire department, law enforcement. There's more particular niches of podcasts that are out there, and those are good. But the good thing about these podcasts is that you can have a multitude of different people come on the show. Like a good example could be I've had multitude of guests come on that talk about their mental health struggle, and it's been range from depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar disorder. I think I might have had someone that might have been diagnosed with multi personality disorder too, OCD, and you have those kind of conversations. But then on the flip side, then you'll have someone that's like, let's talk about sex or let's talk about cartoons. That's just kind of how my podcast is. I don't technically have a particular niche. It all kind of sounds under the honest truth. If you can come on here and tell the truth, then you're welcome to come on the show. I've had people that have come out with like personal views that I may not firmly agree with or believe in, but that's the whole point of the show. Their opinion, they're not going to come on here being judged. They can feel accepted and being able to be in their own comfortable bubble of not like, oh, they're not going to scream at me for an opinion. Now, I don't think I've technically have gotten rough with some questions. Have I asked some pretty tough questions about some of these topics? I think briefly I have, but I just kind of let them talk. That's kind of just how, from my viewpoint, it's hard to see what my audience really enjoys. I can see what episodes I really vibe with and listen to it, but I firmly don't get like comments that say, hey, I really liked this episode. I really thought that this was a really great episode. So I don't know what how my audience is reacting to it. The only thing that I can go off of is the numbers. And, as long as one person listens to an episode, I really do not get tripped up on the numbers as much. It's just kind of like an additional bonus point for me. I'm like, oh, I got 10 streams. That's great. And then if I look and it got 50, I'm like, oh, whoa. It's not like every episode I'm like, please get to 10, please get to 20. I don't do that. So it's hard to kind of see what sticks and what doesn't, but I have really enjoyed it. I feel like I kind of got off track.
No, you're good. It doesn't matter where it goes. Every honest answer is, just as good as, something that you wanted to focus on. And, it doesn't matter to me. And it's like, I know all of that because I'm checking my analytics on Spotify and it's pulling from others, but then YouTube is a different beast. And, looking at things like that. And I said, but, I had to convince myself, I had to pull myself away. It's like, look, you're not doing this for the numbers. You're not doing this for X, Y, and Z. And it sounds to me, I'm like, it sounds a little hokey or whatever, doing it for the good. But, I would love it to get sponsors, get, income coming in as a second source like that. I would love. And, you know, being where I come from. And it's funny that, I see the tattoo on your arm because I'm a survivor as well. In my own sense, it's like I'm doing this for me because, like I say in a couple of other podcasts, I think this podcast started my healing journey. So if it's sort of like a self fulfilling prophecy of me, whether it's the muse, whether it's myself in the future, kind of throwing the force back to me as a younger person saying, you look, you need to do this. If you don't do this, you're not going to end well later in life. And that's one thing I love, and it really put me in a different position where I would have been not well off if I hadn't started this. And I mean, time will tell. We'll see how the future goes, but I love the people that I talk to, and thank you for being on my show. And it's been a ride, man. It's been to the point where I had to kind of rein myself in, and because my wife was like, "Wait, how many people you scheduling?" And where's the time for the family? I said, damn, you're right. So I give myself a narrow window to do my passion, and then I got the rest of life, with my kids and wife and all that other stuff. Now, real quick, yes, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to continue my questions, but if you got something to add on, please go ahead.
I was kind of, you made a good point too. It's like, how much is too much as well. I have, I've, I have kind of fallen victim to being a little bit more of an overachiever. When I first started doing podcasting, I was able to record an episode and have it up within like a day or two because I literally was not doing anything. But then once I got onto Podmatch and was actually able to start making some like revenue too, and that's kind of the hardest part too. It's like, you get constantly asked questions about I get asked all the time, how much do you make on podcasting? And I'm like, do you honestly say, like, tell what it is? And I've told some people that, I do make income. It's not like I make tens of thousands of dollars off of this each month. I wish I did, but I don't. It's just whatever Podmatch pays me at the very end of the month. And for me, it's good, steady money to look upon and be able to look at. I don't really get mad if the payments are good. I don't care. If I get a penny, I'm happy, especially in this day and age. College me, if I got like a penny or found a penny, I was like, I'm savoring this. This is going to go to my savings. Like, that's just how I was. Um, but it's been such a really good thing of learning how, like, time management, because there was a time last year I was doing like 8 or 9 episodes a day because it was just, I got that money. I was like, oh, the more podcasts you do, and that's why you see like a lot of these podcasting companies, and I'm not shading any of them on Podmatch because they are all have good podcasts and they do really well. But the thing about how they're so far up on charts and stuff is that they do 8, 9 interviews a day, and they have a team. They have their own personal team that's behind them that have it. Now, if there's someone that does all that and they're by themselves, I need to learn their tips and tricks, you know. But I'm a one man show. I do everything solo and do it all thing. And it gets a little frustrating at times because it does turn into a little bit of a competition to try to get on like on Podmatch. And of course, people might not know Podmatch does like a top 10 leaderboard list. I've been in the top 10 for like, I think since I debuted on the platform. There might have been a month where I wasn't at the very end. It turns into a little bit of a competition, of like who can pump out the most things, and you kind of have to stop because then you get very much overwhelmed. Like, I'll be honest, I have recorded over 400 episodes in total since of during this whole past year, and I've only posted 100. So, that kind of shows you how far behind I get. That it's hard to manage that too because you don't want to get overworked, but a lot of your income comes from doing more podcast interviews. So it's like you, I kind of have tried to find a balance of doing at least 4 or 5 a day. I thought that's kind of a more manageable thing. I think once I kind of get like a more routine down and get caught up, I could probably maybe increase it, and maybe I could do like 8 interviews one day and then not work for 2 days because I could have like, I could edit for those 2 days. It's just, you have to really figure out like a time and a schedule that works for you to where you don't get overly worked, but you still really enjoy doing what you're doing.
What service you use?
I use Spotify for creators. That's kind of what I use for publishing. It was free. I didn't have to pay anything.
No, I
So
mean for even to do the interviews.
I use Zoom.
Man, I let me give you a little bit of a because I'm a one man show too. When you said that, and I wasn't nodding just to like, hey, yeah, I get it. No, I do it too. I don't have anybody. I don't have any help. Matter of fact, I'm trying to start a second podcast with my wife called in the Spanish culture, Puerto Rican is like café con leche, coffee with milk, but I said café con mente. So we're going to. I already have everything is connected to my Spotify, but I would implore you only because, and I'll I'll qualify that. Use Riverside, or at least try Riverside or Descript, because I heard Descript does the same thing. Their AI editing, that's why I'm able to flip it so quick. And then I go the kind of beginner route with Canva before recording for editing, and then splicing it all together with how I like to do it in Riverside, because I until somebody wants to get sponsored on my podcast, they're gonna have to pay. Otherwise, I'm my own sponsor because of my children's book. So splicing all of that together is great with for me with Canva, but as far as the recording and editing, I've that's why I'm able to flip it so quickly with the editing that Riverside has. It's good for now for me with what I'm doing. I want to check out the script and see if they offer the same thing, see if they're accurate. But man, it's been a freaking dream with doing that. I did a lot of the beginning video with Zoom, and that editing was so tedious. Audio, my first season when I did seasons, it was like the audio editing, I mastered that. Did it through Odyssey, and it came out really nice when I started editing because I had a big head about me, a little ego. I'm like, oh, everything came out the way it is. I'm not even going to edit it. And I'm like, shit, I should have. But doing video now through Riverside, connecting it with Podmatch and everything, I would recommend you at least look into it, because you will see that it is a game changer with how to flip episodes once you record them. So that's just my
Yeah.
my from podcaster to podcaster. That's my advice to you. Like, give it a shot, look into it. It's a game changer, I feel.
Yeah, I've been recommended from that as well. I'm really picky about AI when it comes to my editing. I am a huge editor. I want to make sure everything sounds good. And the thing about my podcast too is I do like to create my own teasers and I do create everything on my own. So I love doing the hands-on editing because it keeps me focused on the episode and I can, if brings back memories too. I've been told multiple times I need to get like an AI editor. I'm just like,
That's the thing. It's like for
don't
me,
know.
it's like it's not invasive, and I love it that even though it does suggest something, I'm like, nope, yep, with whatever it does. But then again, you're right. It's a dose with the different flavors of how they want to. Like, I use also Opus Clip for clips here and there, and I feel that they're above Riverside with how you get the to put on social media. So there's all I've signed up and paid for so many services, and I'm like, well, don't need this, I need that. I like, with this service it gives me this, and it's always ever changing, and it's not too heavy with how it does the edit. I like it because, for one instance, that episode I described with Matt, there wasn't the echo cancellation because he wasn't using headphones. So when you hear my voice, you hear it coming through the speaker in his laptop, and then it's getting recorded, so you hear an echo. Riverside offers the ability that if you're not speaking, the other speaker is muted. Because I live in a house with 3 kids. There's something, my youngest son, 5 years old, could be upstairs in his room, which is right above me. He could just drop something, or you hear thump, or anything else. They're chasing each other. They're running after the dog. They're screaming,
Yeah.
and I used to get incensed about it. I'm like, can you guys please stop? But I said, you know what? If I'm not saying anything, I turn on that option where if you're not speaking, you're muted. And it's perfect. That's what saved the episode for me from Matt. And then after that, I just kept going with everybody else.
Yeah, it's everyone does give good recommendations, and I've tried it. For me too, I still would listen to the whole episode as much as how good AI is and everything. I'd still sit there and would have to listen to the whole thing and be like, did they screw anything up? Did they cut anything out? So for me personally, I like the AI. Or I'm so tired. I personally like the manual editing because it kind of likes it. Trust me, I have thought about switching that just to get caught up, but I don't want there to be a change in how the episode sounds when they go live. I don't want people to think that's different. There's something odd about the editing style here. So, and it kind of makes a good thing about video too. All through my first season, all the what 300 episodes I recorded, those were all audio only. I used Zoom, but I only used the audio clip from Zoom. I just screw the video. I'm not going to worry about video. But coming to see how well video does and teasers and just overall, I thought, do I really want to use the video? And so I've started doing so when I start editing for season 2, I will be having to work with video now. And I even tried testing it the other day, and I already am seeing a lot of red flags about video. I'm like, because I thought I use Adobe Audition. That's been the main thing that I was taught in school how to use, and I'm most comfortable with that. I tried doing the edit video to audio thing, and when you're going in there to edit the audio, it doesn't fix it in the video. So when you're hearing it, you're hearing the voice in main time, but the original video is still going. So it kind of gets off balance. I thought, oh no. I literally thought, oh no, this is not going to work. So now I've been trying to think of how do I edit the video now? And I've also thought about, is this where the Riverside, because I can export video into Riverside and do it, but I thought, do I really want to go that route too? It's just I just want an editing software where it does the video, and I've Googled and tried it and nothing comes up. I'm like, so I don't even know if I'll even be a video podcast because I'm already but I hate not to do it because I've had some people share their screens during recordings and show something, and I'm like, that's going to look really bad if it's just audio. We're so confused. So, and even during the first season, I've had guests be hold up a book, and I'm just audio, they're not going to be able to see it, but I'm like, do I say something? I'm just mm-hmm.
And I get it. I get it. When I first started my journey, I was like, okay, I did a lot of mine, even though they were audio, I did them in person. I did them in person using equipment that wasn't up to par. But for me, that was okay. But then I had this production. I have a back deck I did it during the good months, and having them in person, had a Father's Day episode, had the food out, the spread, and everything else. And those were audio only, and you only see in my social media posts on how it looked in person. So I'm like, how am I going to flip this into? So I've had those growing pains, and doing it in Zoom, I'm like, no, this is crazy. I can't. I was a stickler about editing through audio, which I had hands down. I would know when to cut it, when to give it space, and even in video, adjusting, saying, let a person know, hey, I messed up. Just say, I need to reset. The AI catches it. So, oh, this should be removed. Yes, it's not flawless. It's not. Regardless, I'm using it the best way I can for what I'm able to afford. And and in this season of my life, and doing it for 4 years, coming up to 4 years, it's this is working for me now. When summertime rolls around and I have people that are close to me, I'm going back into in person, summertime, having the birds. I love that when I go listen back to some of my older episodes, and you hear the birds in the background and from my backyard, and that I love. That I love. But doing this, during the winter months and getting the eclectic people, I'm like, okay, so seeing you on your journey and how you're, doing the best thing you can, and with how you want it to be as pure as possible to your heart, I see it, man. I see it. And, you know, as a person who I am, you know, I always want to say, oh, I recommend this, I recommend that. But yeah, you know, you're right. You pick what you is good for you, and you're going to find something is going to be like, it's going to open the floodgates for you. Same way it's done for me. And, you know, hopefully it will be something either somebody mentioned or you just find on your own, you know. But I love that. I love the creativeness and, you know, having, I wish I had like, what is it? You said you had like 400 in pending or something like that, 300 pending. Like that's amazing, you know?
Yeah. I'm prepared. You know, a lot of people might see that as very unprofessional. Of like, okay, well, but if something ever happened to me and I was sick for a month, I'm prepared. I can sit here while I'm sick and edit and post that and have like wouldn't have to worrying about episodes coming out. So I mean, call it what you want. I'm very well prepared. So I have this long back catalog too. And this is, you know, some people are going to be fully understanding when they hear your solo show. I totally understand. When you have podcasters that maybe work for a team, those are kind of the ones that are more difficult to try to understand of like, it's going to take some time till your episode comes out because they're used to having a team be able to edit and have it all out probably within like a week. You know, people don't understand, but at the end of the day, really, you don't really have to go by their needs. It's your time. It really focuses on your hard work. Do what you can do at that point in time. If it takes a year, like here's a prime example. There was a lady that I had come on my podcast last, or she has a podcast that's called the shit that goes on inside our heads. I don't know if you've heard about that, but she's on Podmatch. Her name's Gretchen. She was a lovely guest. She asked me to be on her podcast, and she said, "Now, what I'm about to say, do not scare you. The next availability that I have for your us would be next August, and we recorded this show in I think August or September of last year. So she said it's going to be a year till you can come on." I said, absolutely. I do not mind about waiting until August. So I scheduled, and so I still am. It's February now, about 6 months away. I still have about 6 months. There's going to be people that are like that that do not care. They're not going to care if it takes a year, if it takes months for you to be able to come on a show or come out. Those are the people that really, really care about podcasting, or to me, are more understanding. The people that you record an episode and they're like within a week, where's my episode? Where is it? What's taking so long? Are the times that I'm just like pain in the ass and it's already can tell. You know, it's like they're just gonna be such bad. I'm like, you're down the line. There's a whole bunch of people ahead of you. And I'm same thing as you. I think the people in the order that you record is the order that they should be posted. So I'm the same way. Like when you said that, I thought, yep, I 100% am like that. I'm not like going to be like, yeah, I'm going to record this interview today and have this out tomorrow. And then there's someone that's been waiting 2 months for an episode to not have come out. So it's unfair is what it is. So I follow your regimen of like the order they come in, the order they're released in.
No, that's why I love it. That's why, with how my mind works and how I, uh, in a sense, kind of churn things out, I always make a assembly line for myself. Like, okay, we're doing this, we're doing this. Like your episode, like once this is done, the editing is so easy, and it even gets you, not in a bad way, doing the interview and your motions with actually doing it. It makes the editing so easier, so that, okay, get the transcript, do the intro, do the outro. I already have the layout, so I just copy the last episode, make the adjustments, put in my ads for my children's book, and I am done. I've done episodes that I love, like the Civil War one, which I always go back to. I've done that the same day. I had to interview him on a Saturday, so I had enough time. I told my wife, I said I had an awesome interview. She was like, "You're gonna put it out today, right?" I'm like, "Can you give me the time to do that?" She's like, "Go ahead." She saw it in my face and she's like, "I'm happy. You're happy. go right ahead. Knocked it out. And so, yeah, it's been amazing. I'm glad that I got it to a point where I said, okay, even though I would love to have a huge studio, do this, do that, and yeah, have people, I actually need someone on the administrative side. Otherwise, with the editing and things like that, I like to have control over that. So being able to do my Model T assembly line and get these things out and going, even though it's not too mechanical, too insensitive. No, I love it. I love it. And I could drop it. I have friends. I have a dear friend of mine who I consider a brother. He gave me the new intro music to it because he's a musician. And, to have those sort of connections and to do that, it's been an awesome journey. And I couldn't that's why I love interviewing. When I interview someone and I hear that they have a podcast, I'm like, oh, they're gonna understand, they're gonna get it, they know what's up, they know, they have their stories, they have their good, bad, and I've got my bad ones. I can't even tell you how many times. It's funny when we rescheduled because you said you wasn't feeling well. You were one of three people that back to back canceled on me. And so you weren't feeling well. I had another person. She was like, I just had surgery. I'm out. I'm not doing anything. And then I had another individual who just completely forgot he had an interview. I'm like, you serious right now? And my wife was like, don't get upset. I said, well, I'm processing. So now it's like when that happens, I laugh about it. I'm like, okay, they're a human being. They're going through some stuff. You can kind of, I'm sure you've smelled it. You're like, yeah, that's BS, in a sense. And then although I've been through all of that. So I'm like, I said, you know what? I said, that's cool. People hit me up, oh, I had a pet who died. I'm not, one guy who didn't re-up reschedule. He said he had to take his kid somewhere, like he wasn't feeling well. I'm like, okay, didn't reschedule. Like, dude, you could have told me you didn't want to do it. And I would advise those getting into the podcast space. That's one thing you got to learn real fast. Don't take it personal, because someone has gave me good advice as well and said, are you ready to do this? And then you want to punch above your weight and ask somebody who is, going, who is a, in a sense, a big wig in a sense, or there may be a public figure or whatever. She's like, get ready for a lot of no's. I'll say, yeah, but I got a good product here. I got a good thing I want to do. I want to help other people. All good. Be ready to hear a lot of no's. I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. And she was right. There's a lot of people I asked and they were like, I'll think about it. Or just completely said, you know what, this is not my space. I'm like, all right, cool. Along with all the other stuff. So it got me to the point of like, all right, remove emotion out of it and just keep going forward. Go with the ones that, you align with time wise and everything else. And it's been, for all the bumps, it's been an awesome ride.
Yeah, I've experienced the same thing you have of the cancellations too, and it gets frustrating at times when you have like a full day planned and then all the plans kind of go through and you've already blocked it off. But for this season, I kind of said 5 interviews a day is my max, and so once I reach 5 interviews scheduled, I kind of mark that day as full. And when I get one or like two cancel, it just kind of is like, well, do you open it back up and like have someone take it again, or do you just keep it closed? I've had also dealt with people too that have been, I think out of all the episodes I've recorded, there's just been one episode I didn't post. And I don't know if you've had this happen to you as well. There was one guest that I had that when I sent them the podcast pitch that I do, I wanted the person I was talking to on the show. And they kind of beat around the bush and said, well, I'm not really fond in this topic, but I have someone else that I know that would be great at this. And I thought, okay, well, I took this guy, her recommendation, and had the guy on my show. And I just personally didn't like the episode at all. And they I think took it personal. They literally took it so out of the blue. I told him, I said, look, I wasn't wanting him. So I didn't have a lot of prepared questions for him. I was just honestly bullshitting the whole interview. Well, that was literally that whole episode. I didn't have good talking questions to go off of. Now, usually I can nail those kind of interviews, but when I don't have kind of a profile or can look at this person or have a website where I could like skim through and kind of look, I'm basically going off of just like a intro. And then I'm like, that was the episode I didn't post. That's been the only episode I was like, nope, I'm not posting it. They kind of got forceful about it too. And I was kind of, one thing about podcasting I've learned is that you kind of have to be really tough skinned. Sometimes you have to really snap back. I said, look, your episode's in trash. It's off my computer. It's off in nowhere land. The episode's not getting posted. I've told y'all that months ago that it's not getting posted. Stop messaging me. And what was funny, it was mainly her and an assistant messaging me, not the main guy I interviewed. He never once emailed me and was like, where's my episode? Where's it? I was like, are you just having these people do it for you? Like, I thought, just email me. So they finally left me alone, and I kind of got one last snappy remark in. But that's only happened one time. You know, majority of the people I've been on Podmatch have been some of the nicest people you've ever met. They have good egos about them. They don't really get real cocky, and I've not had those things. Now, have I kind of had like snippets of it during interviews? I'm like, okay. Like I had one this season actually, or it might have been, yeah, I think it was this year. Had told me, he was like, well, I do really best with my interviews if the person read the book. And I thought, do you think I have time to read a whole book here right now? I thought, I don't. And he kind of took it personally. I said, and I honestly told him, I said, okay, if we're going to be this rude, we don't have to do the interview. I've had people that literally have requested stuff, and I've sent them stuff too, and I know that they may have looked at it. I don't get mad if they don't look at it and all that too. You know, it's just kind of like a recommendation of like, if you want to help prepare. So he took it kind of like offensively, and I was just like, it ended up being a good interview. I mean, the questions I had were really good and everything. So I thought, but yeah, people, you meet the good and bad side of podcasting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I always ask. I'm like, look, just tell them in a nice way. Like, I have my set schedule. Give me your media one sheet, and let's rock. Let's do this. I've had a person who you may have interviewed him. If not, he was pretty cool. John Borden, about psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I said, look, I had somebody cancel on me. You want to? And this was like after the new year, I think on the first or the second. And he's like, I already scheduled it. Let's go. I'm like, all right, let's do it. He was a great interview, great guy. And so many other, I've interviewed right actually on the 31st. I've interviewed, he's on Podmatch, Lawrence Bartley. Don't know if you, autistic hypnotherapist from Ireland.
Name sounds familiar.
Yeah, from
That
Ireland.
name, I think I talked to him.
Yeah, he's a cool dude, and we had a great time. I finished that, and then did New Year's with the family right after that. He was in Ireland, so he was already past that, and experiencing that's what enhanced me giving grace to people when I said, look, I'm not locking them into something. And if they have to reschedule, there's people who just constantly reschedule. I say, you know what? When your stuff lines up with mine, then reschedule me. Otherwise, I'm not going to keep going with this back and forth. And love the people coming out of the blue. I've had so many people pitch me stories, and I'm like, this one I like, this one, thank you, but no thanks. And it's been an amazing ride. But finally, where's the best single place for people to find you online, explore your podcast, and keep up with your creativity?
The best place that people can go to is my website, noahspodcast.com. Lethal Venom is available on there, and there'll be links to where people can find it. But they can also see the other podcasts that I do. I have a book podcast that I'm trying to get back into, posting on there, as well as my music podcast as well. Those kind of got put on the back burner because of how well Lethal Venom kind of took off and how well successful it's been. And those are on there, but my website's just the best place to learn all the information, and they all have their own page as well. So feel free to go to noahspodcast.com to learn more about my shows and where you can find them and listen to them.
Noah, thank you very much for your candidness, your vulnerability, your honesty, your sharing your podcast journey with a fellow podcaster, which would enrich somebody coming out with their own. And thank you ultimately for your time. And I really appreciate you as a guest for FYI I'm Damaged.
Thank you, Oscar. That was an insightful episode. If you've ever felt like the outcast in your own story, Noah's journey is a reminder that you can still build a mic, a platform, and a community around the conversations you once needed and never got. They talked about anxiety, COVID isolation, global listenership, and why honest questions may ignite a listener's journey to find their passion, fulfillment, and ultimately their true self. Stay tuned for that wonderful upbeat children's song Oscar created. Play it for your little ones and let the silly dancing commence. Adelante, siempre, por tu mente. Forward, always for your mind. This is the FYI I Am Damaged podcast.
In a bright green jungle where the tall trees sway, lived a little elephant who felt big fins. Every day Logan loved to splash and play by the river's side, but sometimes wobbly legs made him wanna run and hide. Tummy doing flips like a stormy shaking drum. A tiny voice inside him whispered, what if I can't have fun? Then Brandon the wise monkey smiled from the tree, said, little friend, take a breath, come and sit with me. Feel your feet on the ground, feel your hand on your heart. We're breathing together, that's how courage starts. I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. Breathe it in slow, let it out with a wish. When my mind feels wiggly like a monkey in the trees, I calm my heart down with my breath and my knees. I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. Step by step forward through the scared and the what if. Even when my tummy feels funny and tired, I can still be brave, I can still shine bright. Next day in the jungle they played a game of tag. Logan felt the nervous pull, his body started to drag, but he remembered Brandon and the tools he had inside. Took a deep gentle breath instead of running off to hide. Breathe in the sunshine, breathe out all the fear. Stomped his big elephant feet and felt his courage appear. With the wiggle of his trunk and a laugh so free, he whispered to himself, there's a lion heart in me. His friends saw him smiling as he joined in the game. They asked, Logan, what's your secret? You don't look the same. He said, when my thoughts get loud, I don't have to stay small. I breathe and move my body and I stand up tall. I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. Breathe it in slow, let it out with a wish. When my mind be wiggly like a monkey in the trees, I calm my heart down with my breath and my knees. I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. Step by step forward through the scared and the what if. Even when my tummy feels funny and tight, I can still be brave, I can still shine bright. Little heart listening, this song is for you. It's okay to feel scared, that feeling's true. But just like Logan in the jungle so wide, you've got quiet, steady strength living inside. So breathe in slowly, feel your feet on the floor. Let your shoulders soften, Whisper to yourself when the worries rush through. I am strong, I am safe, and I know what to do. I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. Breathe it in slow, lay it out with a wish. When my mind feels wiggly like a monkey in the trees, like I'm locked down with my breath and my knees. I am strong, I assist, I can do this step by step forward through the skin and know what it is. Logan showed the jungle and I show the world. There's a strong-minded hero in every boy and girl in the bright green jungle. When the stars shine above, brave little hearts fall asleep feeling safe.